Sara is on, by the way.
Okay. Hello, Sara.
Hello, Francisco. Hi, Andy. Good
Hi,
to see
Sara.
you guys. Hi, Andy. Good to see you. Good to see you, everyone.
So we online?
We are.
Do you have anyone else watching?
Yeah, we've got about 4 people.
Okay. What time is it?
It is 4 o'clock exactly.
Okay. So let's start with this. Excuse me, I'm gonna move this and take my distance. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Today, we're going to have a tour of the exhibition, of the Dia de la Mujer exhibition, the 2020 Dia de la Mujer exhibition, with curator Sara Solaimani, with the guest curator Sara Solaimani. Just before that, let me say thank you to everybody who has been supporting us, everybody who downloaded the album, and who has been sending messages, everybody who joined. Soon, so you're gonna have to find the link on our bio. Another good news is that tomorrow we're gonna be releasing the podcast. Our latest episode of the podcast featuring Sara Solaimani, featuring also Andy Stern here with me, and featuring Helicomania, one participant artist of this exhibition. So good things are happening this week. Please stay tuned. So I think we're ready. This is Sara Solaimani. Sara, can you introduce yourself and start with the tour, please?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Sara. I am a PhD candidate at the Visual Arts Department at UCSD, University of California, San Diego, and getting my PhD in art history theory and criticism there. And I have curated a number of different shows in relation to critical perspectives, critical artistic approximations and critiques of the border, Chicana and Chicano art, Chicanx art. And I was really honored and delighted to be invited as a guest curator for the Front Dia de la Mujer exhibition, which has become a really important legacy in South Bay and San Diego and here on the border for Chicana border arts. So really honored and excited to have been one of the long line of fierce Chicana feminist border art historians and curators to be chosen and to be amongst these women. Here, the first piece that that Francisco's standing in front of is an installation, a collaborative installation done by Amy Sanchez Arteaga of Cognate Collective, a feminist, Chicana feminist artist, contemporary artist, in collaboration with the art docents, young feminist art docents of Casa Familiar's the Front Gallery docent program. And these are young students who collaborated and put their input and their critical political perspectives into this interpretation or this representation of a piece of writing from the text of notes on the occasion of the celebration of the 20th anniversary of the North American Free Trade Agreement, notas en la ocasión de la celebración del 20 aniversario de la implementación del Tratado de Libre Comercio de América del Norte. So here, this piece that was done for the show in 2020, here we can see Francisco is holding up the book that the collaborative text that was edited by Amy Sanchez, and that a number of different writers, including Pepe Rojo, Cristina Rivera Garza, Alicia Garza, Ultra Red, Antena, Manuel Paul Lopez, and Amy edited here. And the text, Las Tres Dianas, Representations of Subjection and the Dissolution of the Mexican Body Politic, here is the text that was adapted for the installation. And as we see, there's a manifesto written on the walls in graphite and marker. Here we can see that the text is a manifesto of Diana la Cazadora de Choferes, which means the hunter or the assassin of drivers. Here, Diana la Cazadora in 2013 assassinated male drivers, or drivers that were convicted of sexual violence against women in Juarez. She assassinated bus drivers who were accused of the sexual violence. And here there is we can see her manifesto is written on these walls. And so the aesthetic of it, the font, the medium that it would be written in was all a collaborative effort that the docents really took over and took ownership of. And then we can see that there's also drawings, one of the Coatlicue to the right here of the text, which is the devouring serpent mother goddess of the Aztecs, who gave birth to the war god Huitzilopochtli just as her an army of her children was being sent to kill her for violating the birth order, which she was not, which she was not supposed to do. She was not supposed to give birth to another child. And while she was sweeping in her house one day and gathered a ball of feathers, she became pregnant with that forbidden child, and that forbidden pregnancy resulted in the gods getting angry and sending her an army of her children to kill her. In which case, Huitzilopochtli, the child, was born in full armor, and he became the war god and avenged his mother's death by slaying all of his siblings. And Coyolxauhqui, his sister, fell dismembered and twisted on the floor. So these are famous Aztec imagery that we can see in the Museo Nacional de Antropología in Mexico City. So that serpent, devouring serpent mother goddess, is a really important symbol, which has been taken by Chicana feminist writers, queer Chicana feminist writers, specifically Gloria Anzaldúa and her Borderlands La Frontera, as the idea of a state of higher consciousness, or what's known as the Coatlicue state. And then if we move over to the left of the text, we can see Diana, right? So we can see this, she's drawing back the bow, the string of her bow, and it says, "I'm an instrument. We suffer in silence. I'm strong," or I am brave and I am strong. And these these affirmations are written across the parts of her body also that are kind of meant to be covered up, in the public eye, the parts that would normally draw the male gaze, the parts that would normally draw the exoticized, male gaze, her reproductive organs, her breasts, her face. So we see here that she is pointing her arrow, the invisible arrow, kind of toward the text, and that these two powerful female figures kind of bookending this text adds a really important historical trajectory within Mexico to recognize the feminist history, speaking truth to power, speaking against the history of the femicides.
Thank you, Sarah. Let's go to the next page, please.
Okay, and here next we have the pop canonization, Difunta Correa, by Jacqueline Cristina Berna. This piece is meant to draw your attention by way of kind of association or recognition that may mislead the viewer. When we look at this, often we might just think, oh, this is, the Virgin Mary. This is the La Virgen de Guadalupe. Imagery that in, the northern hemisphere and in the south, in Mexico, the kind of what's known as often in the Catholic tradition as the Mexican or indigenous apparition of the Virgin Mary in Tepeyac in 1531, if I'm not mistaken. But what it's meant to do is draw the viewer's eye in here on the site-specific place and space of the border, and to raise curiosity and hopefully to bring you to read and learn more about what this piece and to whom this piece actually refers. This piece is about unofficial saints, right? As figures established by the common public that the church does not recognize. And Jacqueline Berna, being of Argentine descent herself, an Argentine American woman, is here pointing toward the history of Difunta Correa, who is an official saint in the history of Argentina, a woman who was on her way to, crossing a border to reunite with with the father of her child, ultimately ending in her death, and her body continuing to provide nourishment for the child, who continued to nurse, in the attempt to cross and reach and reunite with the child's father, with her partner. We can see this kind of pop aesthetic, the empty, that hollow plastic aesthetic, that looks like a plastic kind of flamingo piece of lawn furniture or something of that sort, and then has a light inside that when plugged in, the sculpture lights up. So this mold that she used, this was purposely done in this way to be this pop representation of a saint, that an unofficial saint, that this imagery such as has become pop in popular culture, right? That we see imagery of the Guadalupe and of the Virgin Mary represented and reproduced over and over and over again, all over, especially here in the border region, but all over Mexico, all over California, all over the world, really. In Europe, of course, we see so many different iterations of La Virgen that it almost becomes like second nature to us. And to have this kind of represented consciously or purposely as a pop art object is what is so interesting, that it draws the viewer's attention to learn something that might be hidden in that kind of incessant reproduction that allows us our eyes to just pass by imagery of the Virgen, of Las Virgenes, and ignore them in a way. So that there's something new to be learned here, and that there's other Latinas, radical Latina and Latinx histories to be learned and to be represented when we're talking about borders.
We're going to talk about Helicomania's piece. We have received a lot of comments about this piece. I think it's very relevant in this particular moment in any country. And Helicomania is from Tijuana, and she's an artist, but she's also a health worker at the Instituto Mexicano del Seguro Social. Sara?
Yeah, this is really important. Angelica's experience on the inside and the outside of this context of the IMSS in Mexico as a public health worker and an artist is really powerful, because bringing those two parts of her identity together for this piece to make this critical commentary, and really using irony and dark humor as a critical device in this piece, is important to recognize the compartmentalization and the kind of disembodiment of women's bodies from this natural process of childbirth, which has now become a medical procedure, and more continues to become a kind of industrialized process, a violent disconnection of the consciousness from a process that is supposed to be, as human animals. This is a process that our instinct leads us through as women through childbirth, and to have a representation like this that so literally kind of points to this, puts the woman on a conveyor belt on an assembly line and pulling the baby out with a hook, and the kind of uniformity of each one of the women that pass by, this kind of reproduction of each of the same woman over and over again almost, is what's really striking about this piece, and speaks to the kind of numbing of the social collective, of the collective consciousness toward childbirth, which is
Helicomania will be explaining her piece tomorrow on the podcast episode, so you can listen to her and her experiences working at the Instituto Mexicano del Seguro Social. And there's a good moment to send a shout out to Angelica, who is a health worker and is on the front lines. So hello, Angelica, if you are watching this, thank you, and hopefully you are safe.
Yes, thank you, Angelica.
And here we have Erika Barbosa's piece. The piece is called Las Llevo Conmigo.
Yeah, and we can see in this piece, Las Llevo Conmigo means I take them with me, right? Translates to I take them with me. And we can see how immediately we can see what it is that this, that the subject of this ink drawing is taking with her. Literally her hair and her body is kind of becoming the landscape around her, a very powerful commentary on the landscapes of borders, specifically being drawn across women's bodies, both mythologically, historically, literally, symbolically. And we can see here that there are all kinds of native plants. There's a cemetery of what we can assume to be this woman's ancestors, and then various clay pots and kind of artifact-looking objects, as if it's like almost an excavation site, and the humanization, the deep humanization of this site through the subjectivity of the female figure that peers at us with a melancholy look, a gaze that really breaks the barrier of the frame between viewer and the object here. And so she really wants the piece to communicate directly the grief about some of the situations in this woman's life here, and wanted it to speak for itself more than a kind of really academic analysis.
Thank you, Sarah. We're going to go to the biggest hall in the gallery, the biggest section. If you are here visiting us, this will be the moment where you give us a comment, appreciate one of the art pieces / plan from the previous exhibition, artist Luciano. So let's go to the
Yes.
gallery wall text, and this is photographs that we printed especially for this exhibition. I really love these pictures. They come to us. Sara?
Here we have the two of the photo series. It's a long and elaborate photo series of Las Santas Locas, who are a women's car club. And this series is from 1979. Chicana feminist artist Lolanda Lopez is the artist who did this, who took these photographs. Lolanda Lopez has a long and detailed trajectory, which we could not possibly do justice here. This is kind of the historical starting point of the exhibition, chronologically speaking. If we look at the expressions here on the faces of Las Santas Locas, who resided in, whose territory was in the Old Mission District of San Francisco, and who were one of the groups of people of color, women of color specifically, who were driven out by gentrification, and whose practices were kind of overridden or driven out also. If we look here at the expressions on their faces, and I think we could spend an hour doing a visual analysis of this piece, but it's really interesting how, although she caught them in kind of a snapshot or an organic moment where the pose wasn't completely fixed before this photo was taken, you can see maybe there were like a series of snaps taken, and this one was the one she chose. That the faces, that the expressions are all slightly different. Yet at the same time, there's a solidarity. There is a collective consciousness kind of being communicated through the gazes of the women. But at the same time, we can see also, again, that one is looking in one direction, one in the other. We see physiognomies that range from, disgust to confrontation, to kind of like daring, like calling you out, to suspicion. And so this direct return of the gaze, of the white male gaze in particular, is what's so powerful about this photo series. And then if we look at the piece to the right, with the classic style of the finger like bracelets that women's car clubs and also cholas from this generation would rock. We can see here that although there's a cross section, there's like a section of the women's bodies that doesn't show their faces. In fact, it's focused from the breast line down to the crotch line, to the pelvic region, right? That and the hips, which would normally be a kind of an object, a fetish for the male gaze. That the way it's represented here, the way that Yolanda has reclaimed this pose and this part of the woman's bodies is really powerful. Her text kind of narrates really beautifully the process of following these women and then watching them in their 50s coming and viewing the photographs of themselves with delight in an exhibition at the Mission Cultural Center for Latino Arts.
This is Ana Castillo's drawing.
Yes, Ana Castillo's drawing is part of a vast body of work, a visual art portfolio that Ana Castillo has, that you can actually see on her website, that many people aren't aware exists. Ana Castillo does have a visual arts practice, although she's known primarily as a Chicana feminist poet. We see here that her drawing is communicating something very bold and a political stance. The style is very uniform. She has an established style and a body of work in her body of work throughout the different drawings, with this kind of crosshatch aesthetic and this ink drawing medium. And we see that, the figure holding a torch has kind of traversed and blazed the trail for others who are approaching upon the, we can assume it's like a border wall that has a barbed wire fence above it. But also in front of her, there were others who paved the way for her. We can see the tops of the heads of the people that have paved that way. And then the kind of psychedelic almost landscape or background right behind her almost draws the viewer's eye back into the behind the foreground, right? It's almost like this MC Escher's Escherian kind of aesthetic, but the figure stands out quite boldly from there. It looks almost 3D.